Holland Wilcox acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands on which this podcast is recorded. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and to all First Nations people joining us today.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for our next Holland Wilcox Cultural Inclusion podcast. And this episode, we are so grateful to have William Lai, King's Counsel, to join us about the bamboo ceiling. And so I just wanted to start off a bit about, would you like to describe a bit about your role and what you do?
Well, thank you for hosting this, and thank you for your very kind invitation to join you in this podcast. More recently, I was elected as chairman of Foley's List. And Foley's was established in 1860. It is one of the oldest and largest barristers group. So it's such a privilege for me to be elected. 2 years ago, my colleague, first female King's Counsel, was elected into that same position. And now I'm the first Asian Australian or Australian of Asian background to be so elected. So it's such a privilege. The other role that I have, which I'm very passionate about, is as Deputy National Chairman of the Order of Australia Association. I've just walked all the way here from Sofitel, Wentworth, and it's got my blood going, so and oxygen in. But we are celebrating our 50th anniversary of the founding of the Order of Australia. And the association has been around since 45 years ago, 5 years after this establishment. So that's another passion that I have, to serve the community at large and to be part of the leadership team as Deputy National Chairman. Now, of course, I do a lot of other things, but we can talk about that as we progress.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I think that the Order of Australia is really good because it does highlight the achievements that people have made. And Australia is such a culture where people don't really want to stand up and put their hand up in many respects. So, and it's also really good that you've got that position because of your Asian heritage. And I suppose, you see, you feel like you can't be what you see. So it's really good to have people in positions such as you have. It's sort of like an inspiration of the next generation or the young generation of lawyers or solicitors and barristers coming through.
That's correct. And Marion Wright Edelman said that she's 80 plus years old, an American-born activist for children's rights. So
Yeah.
I was very inspired by what she said. You cannot be what you cannot see. But I add on, but once you can see, then you can take the steps to be, or to dream at least, to follow that step because others have broken through and you can see them visibly. So that is an inspiration to us all.
And when you're a younger professional, did you have any challenges that you've had to overcome and share how you might have overcome them?
I think all of us do have challenges, particularly I don't speak with the Aussie accent. I don't look like mainstream Australian. So I come from Malaysia, and it is a challenge because when I started law back in 1982, there were fewer from Malaysia, where I come from, who studied law, and there were even fewer Asians in Australia who did law. Those who have done law um, were not visible to us. We didn't know them, or certainly I did not know the Australians who were born here. And the challenge is, or has been, that I simply didn't know anyone. And so I couldn't find people who were in the profession that could identify with my own struggles as a young man coming from another country, not knowing that a language that often is very colloquial, and learning about all of that. But that didn't deter me, because I have always been the sort of person that would gladly contribute anywhere, not just fitting into a silo, whether it is an Asian type silo that some people quickly try to belong to. It is about just getting involved with everyone and learning about everyone's differences. Coming from Malaysia, that helps because we have a very broad multiracial group. From the Indians, the Eurasians, the Chinese, and the Chinese come from everywhere, whether it's from Thailand, the north of Malaysia, or Singapore or Hong Kong. It's a melting pot. And then, of course, we have our own indigenous people, Malaysia, and the Malays who were part of the archipelago. And we celebrated our festivities, whether it be Christmas or Diwali or Hari Raya, as it's called for the Muslims. And so when I started as a young man, it was difficult. The challenge was no one to guide me, to help me, especially in the law. And so everything that I had to do is sort of I had to find out the hard way. And often people would mistake you, oh, you're a lawyer, you studied law. They wouldn't have thought. First question I often would be asked, even as a young barrister, was to help someone in their computer-related problem. I thought that might be a good start to getting a case in the area, but no, that's all they needed to know because I have a degree in computer science. So stereotype often exists and still do
Yes.
to an extent.
Yeah.
So challenges are plentiful. Perhaps it's not how you feel about it, it's how you move forward about what you're going to do about it.
Exactly. So, I mean, I was born in Australia. I'm a fourth generation Australian, so I have a slightly different perspective or experience than you. I think we just want to be Australians like anybody else. We don't want to be differentiated, but we do respect our cultural background and quite proud of it, particularly when it comes to mooncakes and celebrations.
Yes.
But I think that what we really want is when we're going for career opportunities, we want to feel that we've got equal opportunities in terms of promotion or appointment, and not sort of foreseen, with those stereotypes. So when I was a young solicitor, people were concerned. People usually have this thing about Asian female being sort of like quiet and sort of like standing back. And I remember one really big thing for my career is the mentors, people being prepared to mentor. And we'll get to that in a second because you mentioned it. And I remember working for a partner of a law firm, and he said, I used to be concerned that you were too nice to be a lawyer. And then he said, but I've seen you with the cases and you're like a dog with a bone. So, if you're really onto something, you're really onto something, so you'll be fine. And so, I've been a partner for 20 years. So, just having someone have that confidence in you, I think makes a big difference. But I think we just all want to be Australians. And I think a lot of, you walk around the streets, there's so many Asians in Sydney at the moment. I think we all just want to be part of a broader community. You talked about the ability to network and to have people mentor you. You've had a role with the Asian Australian Lawyers Association. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, before I do, I just want to echo what you've just said, and that's why I am so involved with the Order of Australia, because we want to celebrate and promote outstanding Australian citizenship. And the theme of our conference this year focuses on that, to celebrate, to then be able to motivate the younger generations and then to nominate them because they have done work over and above what they do as their day jobs. And that's the spirit of being an Australian, being able to volunteer and contribute. So with that in mind, it was really back in the 90s when I went to Hong Kong for an international conference. And it was there that I saw a lot of barristers in their wigs and gown looking like me. a Chinese background person.
Yeah.
And it inspired me to think about what will it be like in the future.
Yeah.
At that time when I was at the Victorian Bar, there were no other person that I know of who had a Chinese background. There was certainly one person of a Sri Lankan background, and he has since passed away at the age of 90. And so I came back with the inspiration that one day there could be an association that gathered together people who come from a diverse culture and background, whether they are born in Australia or overseas, it didn't matter. It is about championing diversity, but it was difficult to get any traction, momentum, and the volume of people to be involved. And it was really not until 2013 that the Asian Australian Lawyers Association was formed.
Mm-hmm.
A precursor to that was I was privileged enough to be invited by a senior suit then to participate in the Commercial Bar Association of Victoria to help out. And that was the first time somebody actually asked me for help to do something for the fraternity. Up until then, I was literally one of them, but not in any position or service at all. It's not a criticism, it's just the way how it was. And I had to work harder than everyone else to prove myself. I could not let
I feel the same actually, that I've had to work harder to get where I've got.
I could not let others down who believed in me, who
Yeah.
gave me a chance. And that was around about 2008. It still took another 5 years. And by that time, I thought the bar is very specialized with a broad range of people. And it would be better to have an association that represented broadly the profession.
Yes.
Not just barristers, but more so corporate lawyers, government lawyers, and solicitors. And out of that gave birth the Asian Australian Lawyers Association. We've celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We are in every state and territory. So we have branches everywhere. We've got a national board that is headed by a New South Wales colleague, Matt Floro. He is now the current national president, residing and working in New South Wales. But it all emanated from Victoria. And with that, we also created the William Arquette Scholarship, which recognized the first barrister of Chinese descent, possibly in the whole of Australia, a man called William Arquette. That's how it was all formed. A group of us got together over yum cha, and we decided we're going to start this. And Rainer Tang AM, he's a senior member of VCAT. He was also on his way to be the first person of Asian background to be elected as president of the Law Institute of Victoria. So it was natural for him to take on the helm after his term as the first inaugural president. And I'm very proud of that, because what we've done is we have passed the baton on to the next generation. And I'm reminded when I first started to learn about all these things, how to chair meetings, how to speak publicly, all of that. It wasn't in the legal profession. It was in the community where you volunteered community work. And I was in a professional business association that was started by some great Australians who have been here like yourself for generations. And it was after the White Australia policy had been dismantled. So they started many associations, but the key one that represented business was the Chinese Professional and Business Association. And it went back as far as, I think, 1974. So I didn't just got into a role, I had already done a lot of preparation, learning, giving, contribution, doing all of that without really any idea where it'll all go, except to be part of the fabric of our society. And so when the time came to form the Asian Australian Lawyers Association, it was natural for us. And for us, meaning those who were in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And when we had done our time, a short period of time, we passed the baton on to those who are in their late 20s and 30s. They have to make their own mistakes. We can't always hog the titles and the committees. We've got to trust the next generation of leaders, mentor them, sponsor them into positions so that they can make their own mistakes, but then they can rise up and be counted and lead others as we have done so. So I'm really privileged to have done this with a group of inspiring Australians who needed to make a difference. And hopefully we have made a difference for Asian Australian lawyers. But it's not just open to Asian Australia.
Yes.
It is open to all.
Yeah.
And we are privileged that the judiciary knows who we are. We had one of our award ceremony in the High Court of Australia, where former Chief Justice Susan Kiefel gave the speech talking about William Arquette. And we have gone through many events in various Supreme Courts in different states and territory. And I also remember very fondly Governor Beazley, when she was a Justice of the Court of Appeal, giving a keynote speech on our behalf. And I just met her yesterday at the reception at Government House for the Order of Australia. And it is such a privilege to be able to promote all the good things that we as Australians of a different diverse background can contribute to this legal profession and society.
Well, Holland Wilcox is very proudly associated with the Asian Australian Lawyers Association, and it's great opportunity. What we say to all young lawyers is that as you build your career, you need to build your network, so that you can build your own practice. So it makes sense for people to participate in various cultural associations, because our cultural diversity. So I'm also co-lead of cultural diversity here at Holland Wilcox. So we encourage our young lawyers to build their networks, and it makes total sense. But also, Australia is uniquely placed within the geographical region of Asia, and we have a lot of business that we do with Australian Asian businesses, as well as businesses with overseas companies. So we have a large international practice here at Holland Wilcox, and we have a China practice. We have over 20, we're the second largest China practice in Australia. We have over 20 Chinese-speaking lawyers. So headed by Eugene Chen and Rainy Fan. So they have a strong relationship with that association as well.
And I thank the firm for supporting a wonderful association like the Asian Australian Lawyers Association. So thank you on behalf of the founders and the current president and committee and members.
You're most welcome. And I think it's a win-win. It just makes total sense. Let's talk a bit about bias and unconscious bias. What do you want to talk about there?
Well, I never experience any harsh words or words that might even come close to bias or
Oh, you're very lucky.
or some of those things from certainly not from the bench, not overtly or directly from colleagues. Certainly, I've had words said that are not very pleasant in my early days as a barrister by clients, particularly when you're undertaking work for legal aid, or unrepresented parties where you try to help them and they may not understand, because it was unusual to see a person that looks different from the mainstream to represent them in court.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember some occasions going to country magistrates court that you'd hardly see anyone who looked different appearing. And if they did, they're probably an accused in some criminal setting. And I remember those days when I walk in, all the heads would turn. Who is this person looking magnificently in a pinstripe suit? Not the interpreter, definitely, and not an accused, but the barrister acting for a party. And I used that to my advantage, as in I didn't. Well, it empowered me to know that people are attentively going to listen to me and watching, rather than something that is a negative. It's always important to do that. But certainly clients who do that, bias is bias. One person's bias may not be another person's. And the experience would be different. I think what's more lethal is what's not said. The unconscious thing. The thing that people say about you or at you, but not in front of you, behind closed doors. Or assessing you behind closed doors without knowing who you really are, what your values are as a human being, and what looks good in, at first blush. It's not necessarily what is behind. Still water can run deep, and often stereotyping is the thing that I think is more often done by people unconsciously than consciously. But for others, they have experienced direct discrimination or words that are cutting, and we all get that. I've heard people say, "Go back to your country," or "We don't need you here." Those kinds of things.
I'll come back to Australia very quickly.
Yeah. And I must say, I have met people within the order and others who come from 4 or 5 generation of migrants, and particularly Chinese. And they might no longer speak the language, but they've been here longer than the people who call them names.
My family's been here since the 1860s.
Yes, that's right. And that's how old Foley's List was when it first was established back in those days.
I think for me, there's 2 issues. When people make comments which are discriminatory, I say this to people who I quite often mentor young people with Asian backgrounds, and I say 2 things. One is that it's a reflection of them and not you, and secondly, I just think that you've got to realise that, and it's all about how you respond to that. So, there will be people who are difficult, and it might be difficult if they're senior to you or they're a client, but the way that you respond to it is more important. And I think people have, as I said, it's a reflection of them and not you. People have unconscious bias about lots of things. It might not be, it could be sex, it could be gender, it could be, what colour you're wearing. So it's not necessarily cultural.
No.
So, I think what you've got to do is do your best to work through it and work around it and not let it stop you, because otherwise you're getting them what they want rather than getting what you want. That's the sort of advice I give. So, to wrap up, what sort of advice would you give to young lawyers?
Good young lawyers, build your craft and be yourself. Ultimately, if you build your craft, then people will see the merit in the work that you do. There are no quick solutions in our profession. It's a long game. Those who seek quick fixes, quick results, quick promotions without having that strong foundation. I think they will find that when the going gets tough, they wouldn't really know what to do. The other thing I would say is start early in giving, whether it's money or time. You build a culture of contribution. That's what I learned by being part of the Order of Australia. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, somebody is worse off than you. And you can give a little bit of your time to serve, a little bit of your money to help in times of real need. There'll always be people worse off than us. As long as we have life to live, a good shelter that we can call home, a place to work that we can fulfill our professional career development and learn by upskilling, getting knowledge. Building that craft takes time. Be the very best you can. Doesn't matter what others do. And I agree with you that when people are jealous and envious of your success, etc., it is not about you, it's really about them.
Yeah.
You don't have to live vicariously through them. It's not your problem, it's their problem. And the race is your race to run. And I say to all young Australians that remember that there are others that have gone before you who have found it even more difficult during their time.
Yes.
Remember the likes of William R. Kent, the first barrister of Chinese descent. He was born in 1876 and he joined the Victorian Bar, having completed his articles at Maddox. He joined the Victorian Bar in 1904.
Yeah.
He was a very good lawyer, Supreme Court Prize winner. He led many of the his colleagues in those days who ultimately became Supreme Court judges, got knighted, appointed King's Counsel. He worked with the best of the best. He himself was very good, appeared no less than 12 times as we research his High Court appearances. He was a champion of many, many rights. And just imagine what he went through as the only person at that time. If he can do it, we can do it. There's a saying that nothing is impossible, but everything can be difficult. And I say to the young, it's time for you to shine.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time, and it's our absolute privilege to have you with us and to talk about this important topic. Thanks for joining our conversation today. Please feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. And if you like today's episode, please rate, review, or follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And we're going to have further cultural inclusion podcasts, so please join us for that. Thank you.
This podcast is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as such. You should always obtain legal advice about your specific circumstances.